definition, certain characteristics, and certain certain autobiographies. And also we should know that autobiography is different from biography. At the same time, as I mentioned about this literary type, let us see the structure of this autobiography. The autobiography begins with the chapter Resurrecting Time. Time is a very important, significant dimension in this work. Time, as we understand, physical time, and time, according to Bergson, durée, time that is cyclical time, time that is psychological time. We are not talking about tenses here. Now, we do know about three types of tenses: the present tense, the past tense, the future tense. But here, when we talk about time element, time dimension in autobiography, which reminds us even of time passes segment part in To the Lighthouse. Now, remembering another great writer, Virginia Woolf, and her great work of art, To the Lighthouse. To the Lighthouse is presented in an H shape. The first part is the window, which is a symbol. The next part is time passes, which is all devoted to time. Woolf has tried to explore the dimension of time. And of course, stream of consciousness. And the last part is the lighthouse, another rich symbol. So when we talk about time, we are not talking about tenses, we are talking about physical time, of course, but at the same time, psychological time. And psychological time is much more important, because repeating the same statement again, it is a wish to relive one's own past. And when you try to relive your past, you are writing in 1984, but you move back to 1911, or you move back to 1947. You are different when you are narrating the episode or any emotion or sentiment. And the protagonist, you were the protagonist, but the protagonist in 1911 or in 1947 is different. So what we find is the self and the protagonist, the self and the other, the narrator and the protagonist, you now and you then. So in autobiography, this psychological time, which is properly explained and explored by Henry Bergson, becomes very, very important. And so far as writing is concerned, Virginia Woolf's attempt to capture time, psychological time, time in your mind, through the middle part of the novel To the Lighthouse, time passes, is also equally important. When we see the structure of this autobiography, the revenue stamp, there we find different type of entries. For example, the writer may mention an exact date, and the writer ends her autobiography with an exact date, that is date, year and time. But there are entries where the writer just mentions certain concepts or certain dimensions. You know, for example, there could be simply shadow, or she might talk about just one particular year, 1947. So, one more thing which is very important here, the writer cannot, it is not a record of your complete life. You select and drop. So, depending on your character, on your integrity, on your experiences, on your preferences, you mention certain things and you drop certain things. Similarly, the importance you give to time is also different. As I said, when we see the structure of this autobiography and the entries in this work, sometimes Amritaji mentions exact date and time, and sometimes she just does not mention that particular date or that particular year. Rather, she deals with some concept, sentiment, or dimension. So, when we look at the structure of this autobiography, it runs into 6 parts, beginning with time element or time dimension. So, it starts with an interrogation. When you see the first page of autobiography, it reads, "Is it doomsday?" After asking this question, is it doomsday? The writer imagines about the time before her birth. Then the mother becoming pregnant, understood as it was an answer from God, as there were prayers by some girls. And then there is mention about her birth. But she is talking about her birth, and she is talking about resurrection. So it's a journey of spirit. There is much spiritual dimension in this work. Even when we read about certain incidents, instances, showing her affinity, intimacy with men, be it Sajad, friend, be it Sahir, the lover and friend, or be it Imroz, we do feel that it is a search. It is a search for soulmate. We all feel incomplete. And it is our journey. It is our spirit's journey. And in relating with people, we are actually traveling. The spirit is traveling, is embarking on a journey. So it's a spiritual journey, and there is religious element present, especially in the opening of autobiography, because the father of Amritaji was very, very religious. There comes an incident in the opening of this work that the mother of Amritaji was sick. When the mother was sick, other people who gathered there, they said that if children pray, God answers to their prayers. Amritaji had much faith in God, in God's healing powers, and she prayed earnestly. But as it happened, the mother could not survive. Her mother died. And when her mother died, it was a great loss. It's a personal loss for Amritaji. And with this loss, there was another loss also, because as she mentions in her work, that after the death of my mother, as I understood, God did not answer to my prayer. God did not listen to a child's request. I lost faith. I had no hope in faith. I stopped believing in God. I stopped meditation. So there's a complete transformation. If we see what happened in Gandhiji's life, in his spiritual quest, we find different instances, different episodes. While in Amritaji's life, as the mother died, many things died in her life, including her belief, her faith in God. And after you lose your faith in God, it is difficult to survive as human, as a human being in a community, in Sikh community, in a highly religious family. But she survived. Not only survived, she reached great heights of creation. That was because of her faith in words. Her faith in God died, but one faith retained, and that was her faith in words, in art, in her expression. And she says at several points, at several stages in the work, that the pen had helped her, the pen had healed her, the words never betrayed her. So we appreciate this artist, this honest artist's faith in art, faith in words, faith in pen, faith in creative activity. So, though the person witnessed much violence, separation, alienation, the person has faith in creative activity, in creation. She has lost faith in God, but she has not lost faith in the act of writing, in the act of expressing. So when we see the structure of the novel, it begins with a question. It also deals with time, it deals with loss of faith, and it deals with her commitment to writing, her commitment to words. There are other instances here wherein we find that the writer has more faith in words, more faith in pen. Going back to the form of autobiography, Sheila Robotham mentions in Threads Through Time, Writings on History and Autobiography, published in 1999. Always we are split in two, straddling silence, not sure where one would begin to find ourselves or another. This is again a reference to the self and the other. As you try to relive your past, you are one narrator, one speaker. At the same time, the one about whom you are writing, the protagonist, is the other. From this division, our material dislocation, the experience of one part of ourselves as strange, foreign, and cut off from the other, which we experience as tongue tied, paralysis about our own identity. We were never all together in one place, we're always in transit, immigrants into alien territory. So, while writing an autobiography, a writer meets a new self. Many times you come to know about the self in a new manner. As said, it could be a sudden discovery of truth about your own self. There is another autobiography, much discussed. It's My Story by Kamala Das. And in the introduction of this autobiography by Kamala Das, which is again an honest work of art, there are certain other women writers who are mentioned. For example, autobiography of Rasha Sundari Devi in Amar Jiban, that is My Life. Binodini Dasi in Amar Katha, that is My Story. There are autobiographies of Pandita Ramabai, Shirin Madam, Kanan Devi, Hansa Wadekar, Anandibai Karve, Durga Khote, Amrita Pritham, Ajit Kaur, Rosie Thomas, which are much discussed in order to know about feminine sensibility, about women's psyche, about women's experiences. There's one autobiography published in 1999. It is titled as The Pages of My Life, Autobiography and Selected Stories by Popati Hiranandani. And it is translated